clerk will ring the bell. The chair recognizes Representative Lumsden for a motion.
Madam Speaker, I move that this House agree to the Senate substitute for House Bill 98.
Representative Lumsden moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 98. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 98 by Representative Lumsden, the 12th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 50 of the Official Code of Georgia and Teddy relating to state government, so to provide conditions for meeting and public hearings to be held by teleconference in emergency conditions.
The chair recognizes Representative Lumsden to explain the Senate substitute.
Senate substitute to House Bill 98. This is a bill that we passed February the 22nd, 162 to 0. This is the bill that provides local governments the ability to hold meetings and conduct business during emergency situations. The only change that was made was some language that the governor had requested, which more clearly defined the difference between local governments and state agencies. That's all the change involved. And I would be glad to answer any questions, and I'd appreciate your favorable consideration.
There are no questions. The gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 98, all those in favor will vote yes, all those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the gentleman's motion. The ayes are 151, the nays are 1, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute, House Bill 98. The chair recognizes Representative Gaines to make a motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 141.
Representative Gaines moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 141. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 141 by Representative Gaines, the 117th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 15 and Title 17 of the Official Code of Georgia and Teddy relating to victim compensation, so to provide for requirements for awards made from the Georgia Crime Victims Emergency Fund.
The chair recognizes Representative Gaines to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This one's easy because they didn't change anything. They made a change in committee that got stripped back out in Rules Committee, so it's the exact same bill that we passed unanimously earlier this session, 167 to 0. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
You have a question?
Okay.
The chair recognizes Representative Cannon for a question.
Thank you. Do you yield?
I will.
Can you explain then why we are agreeing to this if you said that there's no changes?
So in Senate committee, they did make changes, but then in Rules Committee, they stripped those changes back out of the bill, so it's the exact same language that this House has already passed.
There are no more questions.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 141, all those in favor will vote yes, all those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 158, the nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 141. The chair recognizes Representative Wiedauer for a motion.
I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 153.
Representative Wiedauer has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 153. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 153 by Representative Wiedauer, the 119th and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 15 of Chapter 1, Title 10, the official code of Georgia and Territory relating to Fair Business Practices Act of 1975, so as to provide for requirements for the solicitation of services for corporate filings.
The chair recognizes Representative Wiedauer to explain the motion.
Thank you. Colleagues, this is a simple change. They tweaked line 14. This is the Consumer Protection Bill on soliciting corporate registrations with the Secretary of State. It just expands it basically to include email possibilities as well as mail. That's it, and I will yield for any questions.
You have a question. The chair recognizes Representative Walensky for a question.
Thank you. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Can you please let us know, describe what Helvetica font is and what other fonts you considered in terms of what was going to be used here and why you chose Helvetica?
Well, I'm just fond of it. It's pleasing to the eye, and I appreciate the question. I will yield the will.
The gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 153, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 158, the nays are 2, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 153. The chair recognizes Representative Reeves for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 154.
Representative Reeves has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 153. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 154 by Representative Reeves, the 34th and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 19, the official code of Georgia and Territory relating to domestic relations, so as to strengthen, clarify, and update provisions relating to the protection of children.
Chair recognizes Representative Reeves to explain the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I said this is a Senate substitute, but this is actually, we made an amendment to this bill in the Senate, which the Senate received, and what we did is we tacked on to the very end of this a measure, a defects measure that had gotten lost before crossover day that simply allows 6 months before a child who is in the custody of defects, 6 months before their 18th birthday, it allows defects to petition for that child to have a guardian if need be. I've run across this in my private practice before, especially with children who are disabled. The way the law currently is that you have to wait until their 18th birthday to petition for that guardianship, and it creates a gap while that's pending. And by allowing this 6 month for defects for foster children, it will allow the same rights for them so that a guardian can be in place the day that they turn 18. It becomes effective and they don't have that gap. So this is added on to the adoption revision bill that we had done earlier this year, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
There is a question. The chair recognizes Representative Clark in the gallery for a question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
I am behind the podium, so you cannot see me.
Okay.
But
I'm looking for
I
you.
am here. My question is, how long does this process normally take? You said this would give it 6 months. Generally speaking, how long does it take right now?
It certainly doesn't take 6 months. It really depends on, there are some timelines that the probate court is held to once a petition is filed, but there are a lot of things that have to happen guardian ad litems are appointed, they have to get reports back to the court, and the court it's a very rigorous decision deciding to give an adult a guardian. It's typically in the situation where there's a disability or incapacitation of the person who is about to be of the adult age. And so, but I do these routinely in my law practice, and I certainly don't foresee that if a judge knows that a minor is turning 18, then they will prioritize it, and it will certainly be done in 6 months.
Thank you.
Thank
There are
you.
no more questions.
Thank you. Before I yield the well, Madam Speaker, I just want to take a moment of personal privilege. We're here on this adoption bill. It marks 5 years of work on adoption and foster care, and there's been a dedication, and I just want to say that it started from this house, and that's something that I'm really, really proud of. This effort has always been about families. It's been about growing families. It's been about finding loving homes of all kinds for all children. It's been about taking care of our foster children and trying to bring healing to a place where something has been broken. And I've had a lot of opportunity to talk about my perspective this session and with my family and my son. And I know I'm so appreciative of your prayers and the support that I've received. But the perspective really for me this session is that nothing is more important than family. And serving in this body is a true privilege, and I know that we share a bond that is much like family. And I just want to take a moment to say thank you to this house for the work, for standing by the work that we have done. And I also want to say a special thank you to Speaker Ralston for all of his support in all of these efforts with adoption and foster care. And Madam Speaker, I yield the will.
The gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 154, all those in favor will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 163, the nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 154. The chair recognizes Representative Corbett for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I make a motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute of House Bill 207.
The Representative Corbett has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 207. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 207 by Representative Corbett of the 174th and others to be titled an act to amend Title 40 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to motor vehicles and traffic so as to provide for electronic submission of certain documentation required of manufacturers, distributors, and dealers.
Chair recognizes Representative Corbett to explain the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The only change in this bill is in Section 2, line 37. The language is added that the secondary metal recycler or used motor vehicle parts dealer or a scrap metal processor would be included in the ones that could file documents electronically. That's all the bill does, and I'll stand for any questions.
There are no questions.
Thank you.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 207, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 166, the nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 207. The chair recognizes Representative Gaines for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 286.
Representative Gaines has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 286. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 286 by Representative Gaines, the 117th, and others to be titled an act to amend Chapter 8 of Title 36 of the official code of Georgia and Territory relating to county police so as to restrict the ability of county governing authorities to reduce funding for county police departments.
The chair recognizes Representative Houston to explain the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. House Bill 286, which we discussed quite a bit in this chamber, the Senate made some adjustments that we all worked together on in connection with the Georgia Municipal Association to address some of their concerns, and be happy to walk through some of those specifics. Mostly minor changes, including adding public safety facility as an exception in their spending. So we worked together to come up with some language that again, cities asked for. I know we've already talked about this bill at length, but I think, especially right now over the last few weeks since we passed this bill, we've seen Portland and Los Angeles have also gone back on their work to try to defund the police as crime has skyrocketed in those cities. So I think it's absolutely critical that we get this legislation done to continue to protect families in this state. Madam Speaker, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
The chair recognizes Representative Thomas for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I will.
Does this legislation, is it not true that this legislation prohibits local governments from reducing the police force budget by more than 5% annually or in a rolling 10-year period unless the county actually or anticipated revenue decreases by more than 5%?
Annually and over 5 years.
Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Gravely for a question.
Gentleman yield.
I will.
Is it not true that local counties and police departments, it's vital that they have the needed resources for their law enforcement so that training programs like de-escalation programs, how to deal with the public programs are funded properly so that the engagement is done in a proper manner?
Absolutely. I think that's why we need to invest more in our law enforcement, increase training, increase pay of law enforcement officers. So absolutely.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Do you yield?
I'll yield for one more question.
The chair recognizes Representative Clark for a question.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I will.
I'm behind the column. Can you address the issue that if this bill is to pass, that some counties and municipalities may be afraid to increase their police budgets because they can't go back if they need to make adjustments later?
Well, again, what we've done in this legislation is if there's a responsible need to reduce spending, that there's ability to do so, and including like the changes we worked on in the Senate where if they want to invest in a public safety facility or if they want to have one large time capital improvement projects like buying police cars, then they can do that and it won't affect them the following year. So we've tried to make sure that if there's a responsible reason to reduce spending, they can do so, but we're not going to allow counties and cities to just slash their police departments and put families at risk. Madam Speaker, I'll yield the well and ask for the body's favorable consideration.
The gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 286, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. For what purpose does Representative Anulowicz rise?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it not true that no matter how we vote on this bill today, the fact remains that everyone wants to live in a safe community? Everyone wants to live in a safe community, and these local governments know best how to keep their communities safe?
That's a question for each and every member to make. For what purpose does Representative McLaurin rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that, to Representative Anulowicz's point, what we'd like to do as a body, if it were possible, is have a more comprehensive discussion about public safety that includes a thoughtful analysis of root causes, funding for diverse target areas such as mental health and other social priorities, and not just limit our review of these issues to a handful of bills that accomplish political messaging at the expense of more comprehensive strategy.
That sounds like what the member believes. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 100, the nays are 73, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 286. Okay. The chair recognizes Representative Reeves for a motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House agree to House Bill 479 as amended by the Senate.
Representative Reeves moves that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 479. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 479 by Representative Reeves, the 34th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 17, Official Code of Georgia and Teddy relating to criminal procedure so as to revise certain arrest powers.
Chair recognizes Representative Reeves to explain the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is the Citizens Arrest Repeal Bill, and the bill was, I guarded the words of this bill like I've perhaps never guarded anything in my career here, and the Senate Judiciary Committee did not amend the bill. The bill was amended as it went to the Senate floor, and I want to make clear, and I know I've spoken with many of you, it is a friendly amendment. What the bill does is it creates, as we've created a similar category for restaurant owners and retailers, a right of detention that has parameters around it, it creates a third category that would apply to businesses that have property, that are doing business on their property or somebody else's property. For example, if you're a lawn maintenance company and you have a bunch of equipment on a trailer that's parked in a cul-de-sac and someone were to steal a lawnmower, you would have the same ability to detain someone that you would if you were a loss prevention officer at Target or Walmart, etc. I think this is good because it creates clarity. Arguably, that right exists under 16-3-24. But this is actually an improvement on it because we have created structure around what this detention looks like. There are rules. You have to have probable cause. It has to be reasonable. You have to call the police at a reasonable time or release that person. And the continuum of force is discussed in this new law we've created. So this actually puts certainty around this additional concept and doesn't leave it to chance or to guess. And so I would ask everybody, I think that this is an improvement to this bill, and I hope that everybody will join me again in supporting of this bill. And Madam Speaker, I will yield for any questions.
You have a question. The chair recognizes Representative Cannon for a question.
Thank you. Do you yield?
I do.
Can you speak a little bit more about this provision on the continuum of force that you just spoke about?
Yes, well, the continuum of force is something that is defined in our self-defense statutes with the type of force that is allowed to be presented in certain situations. And the force, if you are defending yourself, if you're legally defending yourself, the force that you give is oftentimes proportionate to the threat of the force that you are receiving. And so in House Bill 479, as it relates to the detention rights that have been created for these categories, it makes clear that deadly force is not a force that can be used in these matters of defending property. Deadly force is only permissible to be used if you are defending yourself or somebody else against a forcible felony or the threat of substantial bodily injury or death.
Chair recognizes Representative Gilliard for a question in the gallery.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Isn't it true that in 1863, when this law, outdated and antiquated, was created, it was created also on the backs of Thomas R. Cobb, who was an avid racist, who wrote the doctrine on how to form the Ku Klux Klan and legally lynch black folk?
That is true.
Does the gentleman further yield?
I do.
Isn't it also true that Georgia would be the first state in the nation to repeal this law, and that Senator Michael Janarius in New York and Representative Wendell Gilliard in South Carolina have taken the leads to follow us?
That is absolutely true, and it's
Does the
something that
gentleman
makes me very proud.
Does the gentleman further yield?
I do.
If we pass this law today, Georgia must hold their truths to be self-evident on paper and on law to truly be the state that's too busy to hate. Is that true?
It's true.
Thank you for this great bill. I support it.
Thank you
and
for
hope
your
that we'll move forward.
Thank you for your support, Representative Gilliard, and your friendship and your help on this.
The chair recognizes Representative Jackson for a question in the gallery.
Does the gentleman yield?
I do.
Can you show me in House Bill 479 the provision that will make sure that citizens understand when they go to apply common sense, that when they see someone that looks like me, that's jogging in the neighborhood, that they will not take it upon themselves to exercise citizens' arrest that may end up being a fatality?
Representative Jackson, the bill repeals the concept of citizen's arrest. It would no longer be legal for anyone to engage in a citizen's arrest. And if they engaged in an illegal detention, a detention that is not otherwise authorized by other areas of law, which is always bound and limited to the concepts of reasonableness, if they were to engage in such behavior without having the justification of doing so, then they would be arguably committing a crime, or they would be committing something where you would have a private cause of action to pursue against them.
Does the gentleman further yield?
I do.
Because of the climate that we are in Georgia, will a citizen confuse citizen's arrest versus stand your ground law?
Stand your ground law and citizen's arrest are two very different things. They're oftentimes conflated. Citizen's arrest is the action of placing somebody under arrest because you have seen them, you claim to have seen them do something that was against the law, and you have, under the current law, since 1863, you have the right to affirmatively make an arrest of that person. Stand your ground, 16-3-23.1, is a matter of self-defense. It's derived from our ability to defend ourselves and the duty to retreat. So they're very different concepts, are oftentimes conflated. I think that everything that we can do as a culture and society, as a General Assembly, and in our communities back home to educate our residents, our constituents, and our citizens on what proper self-defense is and what it is not, makes all of our communities better places and makes Georgia a better place. And I hope that the attention that what Georgia's gone through in the last year, what every single one of our residents have experienced, and the effort in doing what we're doing here, I hope that this is a step in creating that education and awareness about defending oneself and the appropriateness of that depending on the circumstances.
Does the gentleman yield for one further question?
I'm gonna yield for one more question.
Thank you. And I appreciate the gentleman's explanation. Would it be to our advantage, this august body, that the explanation that you just gave, that we should also ensure that we provide that same level of education to all Georgians, urban, rural, and suburban, to make sure that they have the same level of understanding that you just described to all of us in this chamber?
I support what you're saying. Members of the General Assembly, House of Representatives, thank you, and I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 479, all those in favor will vote yes, all those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 169, the nays are 0. The House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 479. The chair recognizes Representative Levitt for a motion. Leverett.
Madam Speaker, I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 635.
Representative Leverett has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 635. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 635 by Representative Leverett of the 33rd and others to be titled an act to amend Title 15, the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to courts, so as to provide that each judge of the Superior Court, State Court, and Probate Court, and each magistrate shall have the authority to perform any lawful judicial act, regardless of where he or she is physically located.
The chair recognizes Representative Leverett to explain the motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, taking a bill for the first time over to the Senate reminded me of Winston Churchill's comment that there's nothing more exhilarating than being shot at without effect. But seriously, I believe the Senate made some good changes to this bill. As you recall, this was a bill that had some of the judicial COVID-19 task force provisions and initiatives that would allow us to deal with the backlog that's been accumulating during the COVID-19 pandemic. One provision allowed judges, it was requested by the Superior Court judges, that would allow them to remotely sign orders. They can already do this, but this would provide they could do that even if they were outside the limits of the state. Another provision modified some of the existing law on moving a location of a courthouse. We got over to the Senate and they added what were basically Representative Gunner's bills, 555 and 556, that allowed DAs to file accusations on felony cases until June 30 of next year, which would expedite the processing of those cases. And the other bill would allow defendants to request bench trials, that is, trials before a judge. Those two latter provisions have a sunset on them, and the Senate version retained the McLaurin Amendment, which would have carved out from those provisions serious violent felonies, the so-called 7 deadly sins. So the changes were all welcome, and we would ask your favorable approval of this today, and I'll yield the well for any questions.
The chair recognizes Representative Walensky for a question.
Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Is it not true that my bill is also in this bill?
Well, that's true, and that's the reason I asked you if I can name it the Mike Walensky Happiness Adjustment and Health Act, or MWAHA, but you refused. So.
Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
I think we all agree that's a terrible name, and it's understandable, but I was going to say that Judge Gunter sits next to me and you're in front of me, so is it not true that 341 is a powerful room and this bill says so?
The gentleman knows of what he speaks.
Chair recognizes Representative McLaurin for a question in the gallery.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Will the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Is it not true that despite that Representative Walensky was involved in this process, that the Judicial Council has requested these bills because they're a very important tool for moving cases along as quickly as possible?
The gentleman speaks the truth.
Thank you very much.
Madam Speaker, I yield the well and ask your favorable consideration.
The gentleman has yielded the well. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 635, all those in favor will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. For what purpose does Representative Cannon rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that I have a concern as to the germaneness of the opening remark about being shot at after we had just passed a bill about citizens' arrest where someone was actually shot fatally?
The chair believes germaneness as described in our rule book only pertains to two different sections contained within a bill that are unrelated.
Further
Have
inquiry?
all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes were 165, the nays were 1, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 635.
Chair recognizes Representative Williams, Rick Williams, for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Come before you and make a motion that the House accept the amendment to House Bill 128.
Representative Williams has moved that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 128. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 128 by Representative Williams, the 145th and others to be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 and Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to general provisions regarding health so as to prohibit providers from discriminating against potential organ transplant recipients.
Chair recognizes Representative Williams to explain the Senate amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I ask your consideration to accept this amendment and pass this bill. It passed unanimous in the House, passed unanimous in the Senate. They added on Simon's Law, which protects also the right to resuscitate a child. Thank you. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to take them, or I'll yield the way.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 128, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 163, the nays are 1, and this House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 128. Chair recognizes Chairman Rich for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 287.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 287 by Representative Rich, the 97th and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 2 of Article 6 of Chapter 2 entitled 20 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to competencies and core curriculum so as to include tobacco and vapor products in the course of instruction regarding school alcohol and drugs.
The chair recognizes Chairman Rich to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate added on to this bill a provision that will require the public schools, grades 6 through 12, to include in their health and physical education training or education on human trafficking awareness. I will yield for any questions.
You have no questions?
Thank you, and I request your favorable consideration.
On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 287, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the lady's motion, the ayes are 163, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 287. Chair recognizes Representative Meeks for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 282.
Representative Meeks has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 282. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 282 by Representative Meeks, the 178th and others to be entitled an act to amend Article 13, Chapter 5 of Title 48, the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to ad valorem taxation of qualified timberland property.
Chair recognizes Representative Meeks to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, we passed this bill earlier. We got to the Senate, we made a couple of changes. We changed the evaluation to a 50-50 instead of a 65-35, and also added a couple of other documents that would be approved for describing the particular property that's being enrolled in the program. And Mr. Speaker, that is the changes to the bill. I'm happy to answer any questions.
You have no questions.
Thank you, Mr.
You
Speaker.
do
I yield
have
the
a
well.
question.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Chairman Barr to your left for a question.
Thank you, sir. I apologize. I haven't been able to look at this in detail. Which way did we move the now? You said it's a 50-50. Which way did we go on the?
It was 35-65, and we went to 50-50.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir. If no other questions, Mr. Speaker, I
You
yield the
do
will.
have one more question if you care to yield.
One more, yes, sir.
Chair recognizes Representative Cannon to your left for a question.
Thank you. Do you yield?
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about line 95 and 96 in the amendment. I'd like to ask about the simple forest management plan.
Sure.
Can you help to just explain to the body a little bit more about that and why they shall not be required to submit that?
We worked through an agreement with the Department of Revenue that would actually go out and check the pieces of property and make sure that they are indeed being used for the purposes which they are enrolled in the program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the will.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 282, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the gentleman's motion. The ayes are 166, the nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 282. Chair recognizes Chairman Ballinger for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House accept the Senate substitute to House Bill 273.
Chairman Ballinger has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute, House Bill 273. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 273 by Representative Ballinger, the 23rd to be entitled Act to amend Article 3, Chapter 4, Title 3 of the Official Code of Georgia and Territory relating to local authorization and regulations for manufacture, distribution, and package sales of distilled spirits.
Chair recognizes Chairman Ballinger to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Not yet, Dean. We've got at least one more. House Bill 273 just basically sets liquor free. We've had this set beer free. This sets liquor free. It allows for direct sales from distilleries to public. It sets limitations, daily limits, and on-site production requirements. It allows a distillery to make retail sales through its tasting rooms, investment in manufacturing, job creation, and promotion of homegrown products here in the state of Georgia. That's what this bill does in a nutshell. And Mr. Speaker, out of respect for everybody's time, I will yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 273, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the lady's motion. The ayes are 127, the nays are 33, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 273. Chair recognizes Representative Gravely.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I insist on the House position for SB 195.
Representative Gravely has moved that the House insist on its position on House Bill 195. The clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 195 by Senator Mullis, the 53rd to be entitled Act to amend Code Section 223.3 of the Official Code of Georgia and Territory relating to definitions regarding hemp farming.
Chair recognizes Representative Gravely to explain his motion.
Ladies and gentlemen of this House, I believe we've got an opportunity to go into conference and to insist. We had some good things in this bill. For 7 years, the House has led. We've always ended up at a conference, but we need to do it again so that we can keep this going forward. This is a good opportunity for us, and the Senate just defeated 2 amendments to try and kill the bill. So we need to insist on our position and move into a conference committee. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Gravely has moved that the House insist on its position on Senate Bill 195. Is there objection? The chair hears none, and the House has insisted on its position on Senate Bill 195. Chair recognizes Chairman Lumsden for a motion.
I move that this House agree to the Senate substitute for House Bill 254.
Chairman Lumsden has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 254. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 254 by Representative Lumsden to the 12th and others to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 23, entitled 33, the official code of Georgia and Territory relating to licensing of agents, agencies, sub-agents, counselors, and adjusters, so as to increase the insurance commissioner's enforcement authority.
Chair recognizes Chairman Lumsden to explain the Senate substitute.
Mr. Speaker, members of the House, House Bill 254 is a department bill, came as a priority request from the Insurance Commissioner's Office. We passed this bill 163 on February the 16th. It is the bill that addresses the laws that govern the operation of public adjusters in our state. The changes made in the Senate were really just clarifications, minor language change. Line 210 gives the commissioner discretion to require a public adjuster to provide proof of financial responsibility as a condition of licensure. Lines 247 corrects a drafting error. Line 282 updates allowed hours for solicitation. 291 and 293 clean up language clarifying employees must have a public adjuster's license to act as a public adjuster. And lines 334 through 338 adds language clarifying what a contractor is allowed to discuss with a property owner. Those were the only changes. These were changes that the industry had requested and the Insurance Commissioner's Office was agreeable to, and that is the bill. Be glad to answer any questions. If not, I'll yield the will.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 254, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 164, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute on House Bill 254. Okay, the chair is advised that the budget is on the tables in the back. So, and that will be out back of the chamber, out back of the gallery, and out back at 341. The rules of the House require that the budget lay on the desk for 1 hour before it's considered by the House. That 1 hour begins at 4:55 p.m., March 31, 2021. Chair recognizes Representative LaHood for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House agree to the Senate sub to House Bill 245.
Representative LaHood has moved that this House agree with the Senate substitute to House Bill 245. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 245 by Representative LaHood of the 175th and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 35 of Title 43 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to podiatry practice so as to amend a provision relating to fingerprint and criminal background checks.
Chair recognizes Representative LaHood to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate sub to House Bill 245 makes a very minor change, and it's on line 16 and line 30, where the phrase "or its representative," those three words were struck, and that was to satisfy an FBI recommendation to make sure it was not difficult to match our Medical Practice Act when doing compacts with other states. It's a very simple change, and I would appreciate your favorable consideration. I yield the well. Thank you.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 245, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 169, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 245. Chair recognizes Representative Gaines for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 231.
Representative Gaines has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 231. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 231 by Representative Gaines, the 117th and others to be entitled an act to amend Article 7 of Chapter 5 of Title 16 and Article 1 of Chapter 13 of Title 19 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to stalking and granting of relief by superior courts.
Chair recognizes Representative Gaines to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 231, which we passed unanimously earlier this session, is a positive step forward in our fight against domestic violence. Mostly just cleanup language. The only substantive change would allow individuals who have been in a dating relationship within the last 6 months to also seek these TPOs. Mr. Speaker, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
You have a question if you care to yield.
I'll yield for one.
Chair recognizes Representative Cannon to your left for a question.
Thank you. Do you yield?
I will.
I have a question about lines 26 through 29 as it details the definition of a dating relationship. With today being Transgender Day of Visibility, many times those in the transgender community experience dating violence, and actually we have a lot of violence that ends up in their death. Would this bill actually be supportive of the transgender and LGBTQ community?
This legislation applies, to make sure that anybody in a dating relationship that has violence against them, they have the opportunity to seek civil relief to make sure that they are protected. And so that's what this legislation does. Mr. Speaker, I yield the well and ask for the body's favorable consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 231, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 169, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 231. Chair recognizes Chairman Chokus for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate sub for House Bill 208.
Chairman Chokus has moved that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 208. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 208 by Representative Chokus, the 138th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 4, Title 1 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating holidays and observances so as to provide that the second Wednesday of February of each year shall be designated as National Swearing-In Day in Georgia.
Chair recognizes Chairman Chokus to explain the Senate amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a simple amendment. In the list of armed forces that would be recognized, it included the Senate, through a floor amendment, added Merchant Marine. They just added Merchant Marine to the list. And without, Mr. Speaker, I'll yield the well and ask for your favorable consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 208, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. We're back to 128. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 172, the nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 208. Chair recognizes Representative Rick Williams for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask that the House be in agreement to House Bill 124 as amended by the Senate.
Representative Williams has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 124. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 124 by Representative Williams, the 145th, to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 18 entitled 43, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to funeral directors and establishments, embalmers, and crematories, so as to provide for multiple cremation devices.
Chair recognizes Representative Williams to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker. All this is the same cremation bill that we passed unanimous out of here just a few weeks ago. Ask for your favorable consideration. I'll yield the well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 124, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 170, the nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 124. Chair recognizes Representative Rick Williams for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bring before you House Bill 354 as amended by the Senate. Make a motion we approve the amendment.
Representative Williams has moved that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 354. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 354 by Representative Williams, the 145th and others to be titled an act to amend Title 43, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to professions and businesses, so as to require the State Board of Cemeterians and the State Board of Funeral Service to report suspected unlawful activity to the Sheriff's Office and the Attorney General.
Chair recognizes Representative Williams to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the bill that passed out of here unanimous and passed out of the Senate unanimous. The only change they made was giving the state boards time to notify the State Board of Funeral Service and the State Board of Cemeterians. And so, therefore, I ask for your favorable consideration, and I yield the well.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 354, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 168. The nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 354. Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate's amendment to House Bill 307.
Chairman Cooper has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 307. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 307 by Representative Cooper, the 43rd, and others to be entitled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 24, Title 33, the official code of Georgia annotated relating to insurance generally, so as to revise the Georgia Telehealth Act.
Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is the telehealth bill, and the Senate caught something that we didn't put in. In this day and age, when in rural areas we have fewer and fewer specialists, we are getting family practitioners, and very often they need to consult with a specialist hundreds of miles away, and this allows for them to do that. and to exchange like MRI reports and so forth without the patient having to be actually present for a visit. And it sets the stage for them to be also paid for that visit. That's what the Senate did, and I would ask the House to approve these changes to 307. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield.
On the lady's motion that this House agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 307, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the lady's motion. The ayes are 168, the nays are 0. This House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 307. Chair recognizes Chairman Corbett for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I make a motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute of House Bill 336.
Chairman Corbett has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 336. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 336 by Representative Corbett of the 174th, being titled an act to amend Chapter 23 of Title II of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to hemp farming so as to provide for compliance with federal laws and regulations.
Chair recognizes Chairman Corbett to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the Ag Committee in the House, it became apparent that the surety bond was too low, talking to the farmers, and also the process on how to file a claim against that bond. So in Section 5 of the bill, working with the Department of Ag, and they followed legislation or wording from Colorado, exactly how they determine that. We had raised it already to $300,000, but this new language here basically sets a process that it's 2% of last year's hemp bought from that the processor buys from a licensee with a minimum of $300,000, a maximum of $1 million, and then also a process on how to file the claim if they need to with the Department of Ag, and that's all we're doing in Section 5. And I ask for everybody's favorable consideration, and I yield the well.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 336, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 159, the nays are 5, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 336. Chair recognizes Representative LaRicchia for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Asking this House to agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 346.
Representative LaRicchia has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 346. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 346 by Representative LaRicchia of the 169th, being titled an act to amend Article 3 of Chapter 11 and Title 31 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to emergency medical services personnel.
Chair recognizes Representative LaRicchia to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is Jerem's Act allowing paramedics to administer shots for those in adrenal crisis. This bill is largely unchanged. If you'll look at line 22, they added or any adrenal insufficiency. Line 23 is believed to be in crisis. That's all they did, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you. I yield the will.
On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 346. All those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines on the gentleman's motion. The ayes are 169, the nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 346. Chair recognizes Representative LaHood for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 363.
Representative LaHood has moved that this House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 363. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 363 by Representative LaHood of the 175th and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 16 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to crimes and offenses so as to revise definitions relative to the protection of elder persons.
Chair recognizes Representative LaHood to explain the Senate amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This Senate amendment adds some language to Section 6 of House Bill 363, and this is to the intention of that is to close a loophole that currently exists based on a Court of Appeals decision in a case called Bully versus State, where a criminal defendant used his position as an owner of a rehab facility to prey and sexually abuse women. It's a good bill. It's tough on crime, and if there's no questions, I'll yield the well.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 363, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the gentleman's motion. The ayes are 164, the nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 363. Chair recognizes the Speaker Pro Tem of the House for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 370.
Speaker Pro Tem Jones has moved that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 370. Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 370 by Representative Jones of the 47th and others to be entitled an act to amend Article 4, Chapter 7 of Title 31 of the official code of Georgia annotated relating to county and municipal hospital authorities so as to provide for term limits for members of joint hospital authorities.
Chair recognizes Speaker Pro Tem Jones to explain her motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill revises the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority, and it'll result in about $1.5 million more going back to the hospital to pay towards pension obligations and indigent care on the term limits which are being put in place that are very similar to the term limits on the Grady Memorial Corporation. Senator Lester Jackson had an amendment in the Senate which I think improved the bill. It eliminates any partial terms as counting towards the term limit. The bill passed in the Senate 46-2, and with that, Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask for your favorable consideration. I yield the well.
On the lady's motion that the House agree to the Senate amendment to House Bill 370, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the lady's motion. The ayes are 98, the nays are 67, and this House has agreed to the Senate amendment to House Bill 370. Chair recognizes Chairman Lumsden for a motion.
I move that this House agree to the Senate substitute for House Bill 451.
Chairman Lumsden has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 451. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 451 by Representative Lumsden of the 12th and others to be entitled an act to amend Part 1 of Article 2 of Chapter 5 of Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to property tax exemptions so as to provide for the optional determination by a taxpayer of the fair market value.
Chair recognizes Chairman Lumsden to explain the Senate substitute.
House Bill 451 was a bill that we passed on March 5th, 159-0. It was a bill that came as a request from the Georgia Manufacturers Association, simply provided an optional way to determine applicable fair market value on finished inventory for the year 2021. This was a COVID-caused problem. The only change was a correction in a code section, a Scrivener's error. I appreciate your favorable consideration.
On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 451, all those in favor will vote aye, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 167, the nays are 0, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 451. Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 458.
Chairman Cooper has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 458. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 458 by Representative Cooper, the 43rd, and others to be entitled an act to amend Chapter 34, Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to physicians, physicians' assistants, and others so as to require certain training relating to sexual misconduct for members of the Georgia Composite Medical Board.
Chair recognizes Chairman Cooper to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the clerk explained, this is about the sexual misconduct and education for physicians. The Senate reduced the requirement for for continuing education to 2 credits for one time on this issue, and they also put the word actual in the reporting process, that so for a physician must have actual knowledge of the impropriety by another physician when reporting them to the board. I will thank everybody and ask for their favorable consideration of these changes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
On the lady's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 458, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. All members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the lady's motion, the ayes are 150, the nays are 15. And this House has agreed to the Senate substitute, House Bill 458. Chair recognizes Representative Gullett for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move this House agree to Senate substitute for House Bill 465.
Representative Gullett has moved that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 465. The clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 465 by Representative Gullett, the 19th and others to be titled an act to amend Chapter 60 and Title 36 of the official code of Georgia and Territory relating to general provisions applicable to counties and municipal corporations so as to prohibit local governments from imposing civil penalties upon an alarm systems contractor for a false alarm.
Chair recognizes Representative Gullett to explain the Senate substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When we carried this over to the Senate, we found out that there's an unintentional issue between landlords and tenants, and the change was at our request to change change individual property owner to alarm user on line 38. Bill does not change the intent of the bill. Ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Do you yield for a question?
No, sir. Thank you.
I guess that answered my question. On the gentleman's motion that this House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 465, all those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. What purpose does Representative McLaurin rise?
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Speaker.
State your inquiry.
Isn't that true that the next time that Representative Gullett texts me, I'm just going to say, no, sir?
I think I would agree with that. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the gentleman's motion, the ayes are 100, the nays are 65, and this House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 465. For what purpose does the Majority Caucus Whip, Representative Kelly, rise?
To make a motion.
State your motion.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Senate Bill 156 be recommitted to rules.
The Majority Caucus Whip has moved that Senate Bill 156 be recommitted to the Rules Committee. Is there objection? Clerk will read the caption.
Senate Bill 156 by Senator Harbin, the 16th, Tippins, the 37th, Lucas, the 26th, Tillery, the 19th, and others to be entitled an act to amend Title 34 of the official code of Georgia and Territory relating to labor and industrial relations so as to provide for the appointment, oath, bond, powers, duties, and authority of a chief labor officer.
On the gentleman's motion that Senate Bill 156 be recommitted to the Rules Committee, is there objection? Chair hears none, and it is back in the Rules Committee. clerk will read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions.
Honoring the life and memory of Mr. Peter Lamar Stinner. Honoring the life and memory of Dorothy Dot Johnson Fletcher. Honoring the life and memory of Janet Jan Jennings Music. Commending and congratulating Margaret Smith. Recognizing March 25th, 2021 as Greek Bicentennial Independence Day. Recognizing and commending John Keener. Commending Pat Bell and the Jackson County 4-H Club on the occasion of their 48th anniversary. Recognizing June 2021 as Immigrant Heritage Month. Recognizing and commending Dr. Luvina Range. And for other purposes, that completes the reading of the privilege resolution.
Is there any objection to adopting the privilege resolutions? The chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. Chair recognizes the chair of the House Appropriations Committee, Chairman England, for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just wanted to let everyone know that there are tracking documents for the budget out there on the table as well, along with two other sheets or two other packets that I hope you pick up as well. One is from the governor talking about the American Recovery Plan funds and the input he is seeking to get from us going forward on the expenditure of those. And then also a report that Sarah Arroyo in our office did last year as it relates to school system, local school system reserves. That document is out there as well. So as we take a break, you probably want to grab those. It makes it a little bit easier to go through the document on the tracking sheet, figure out what changes were made and where the agreements were. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the chair of the House Rules Committee, Chairman Smith, for an announcement.
Well, where's the standing ovation? Thank you, sir. I'll remember that one. Rules will meet at 6:45. 6:45. Thank you.
Reminder that at the dinner break, please return your tablets to the clerk's office in order that they might be charged. If you have a tablet, get it to a member of the clerk's office staff. Dinner is available in room 216. I understand it is from the varsity. I understand also that you will need a microwave when you pick it up because they brought it a little early. They needed a microwave when they brought it. So we're going to be in recess until 7 p.m. for dinner and a Rules Committee meeting.